2019 was yet another fantastic year for animation, especially helped by Netflix becoming more involved in producing and distributing animated films. There were certainly plenty of sequels this year, but many of those were also of high quality. In fact, I should probably let you know that almost half of the entries on this list are sequels. Obviously, computer animation takes up most of the spots, but there are also a few hand-drawn titles and even a stop-motion film. We are currently in a golden age of animation, and 2019 continued to prove that. So here are my top 13 favorite animated movies of the year. The Secret Life of Pets 2. This sequel to the Illumination hit made the interesting decision to give the pets 3 separate storylines, as we cut between the escapades of Max, Snowball, and Gidget. I actually found that to be a clever idea, as it allowed the pets to go off on their own little adventures. It also gave the filmmakers the opportunity to come up with plenty of funny gags. Max's story in the country allowed for fun interactions with a no-nonsense farm dog voiced by Harrison Ford. Snowball being paired up with a Shih Tzu voiced by Tiffany Haddish and indulging in his own superheroics led to a number of inventive bits, especially when he imagined himself in a comic book setting. And the various cat jokes stuffed into Gidget's plot were hilarious and quite clever. Both Secret Life of Pets films strike me as very storyboard-driven, with the artist contributing as many jokes as possible, revolving around pets' specific quirks, and I quite enjoyed them. The Addams Family. One of the reasons Charles Addams' famous comic creations have withstood the test of time for so long is that the general premise of this family who loves what the rest of society is disgusted by is a funny one. The makers of this new incarnation understood that, and revel in the gothic and macabre nature of this clan. I really liked hanging out with the Addams Family in this movie, and the filmmakers going for something more faithful to the original comic panels allow this to stand apart from other adaptations. Craig Kelman did a particularly good job of recreating Charles Addams' designs, with the animators successfully translating them to CG. There are so many great visual gags peppered throughout the movie which got a laugh out of me. I also liked how the story spent a lot of time with Wednesday, as she brings her dark sensibilities to the nearby shiny community. There's definitely a commentary there on respecting those who are different, and that's fitting with the satire of the comics. And that ending with the classic theme song from the television show? Perfect. I Lost My Body. This French animated film, currently streaming on Netflix, is just one example of what animation is capable of, as a good amount of screen time is spent with this disembodied hand making this long journey. The animators give so much personality to this hand and convey so much through just the way it moves around the city. The dangers it encounters are genuinely shocking, and even made me gasp a few times. There's also a parallel story going on, involving a pizza boy trying to get romantically involved with a woman he only knows via intercom. Thankfully, the film does call him out for his behavior, nor does it try to make us like the guy. The way these two plots eventually intersect is well done. I Lost My Body is another example of the solid animation work coming out of France. The Angry Birds Movie 2. A sequel that very much improves on its predecessor by really pushing the Looney Tunes influence and basically making a Mission Impossible movie with birds and pigs. There's a wonderfully manic energy to Angry Birds 2, but never in a way that feels tiring, and I found myself laughing multiple times throughout the runtime. Director Thor Van Orman and his team at Sony Animation came up with all sorts of inspired gags, and the animators especially push the cartoon aspect. There's one part of a giant bird costume that made me laugh from beginning to end. This is a movie where the verbal jokes are just as clever as the physical gags, and it's remarkable how many of the jokes land. Even the soundtrack choices add to the hilarity of Angry Birds 2, and there's also a subplot involving hatchlings that seems unrelated to the main plot, but eventually pays off. This was a consistently funny comedy that was unashamed of what it was, and I admire it for that. Abominable. Jill Colton did a lovely job of directing this story of friendship and giving it the needed heart and emotion. This co-production between DreamWorks and China's Pearl Studios was able to highlight Chinese culture with particular emphasis on the mountains and landscapes, which are stunningly brought to life here. The message of family is nicely done, as are the environmental themes presented. but I also really like seeing the interactions between the main characters and a Yeti named Everest. The different powers Everest has are highly imaginative, and lead to some great sequences. The central antagonist is also well handled, and I like that he was not written as your standard villain. Abominable proves to be a likable adventure and a sweet story. Invader Zim, Enter the Florpus. The long-awaited movie, based on the cult Nickelodeon series, finally landed on Netflix over the summer, and was well worth the anticipation. Jonah Vasquez was able to jump back into that world he created, and did not tone down the strangeness of the premise. Zim continued to be his evil, maniacal self, and his continuing battles with Dib made for some striking animated moments. Enter the Florpus even plays with the animation style at times, showing how off-the-wall Vasquez was willing to take his creation. The movie does give the animation a bit more of a cinematic feel, so it would have been neat to see this on the big screen. I really liked how the movie expanded on Dib and his father Professor Membrane's relationship, and we also get plenty of Gur. More of Gur is always a good thing, especially when he brings along a catchy song. At 71 minutes, it moves along at a good clip, and it was just great catching up with these crazy characters again. Missing Link. Laika has become known for its dark tales involving young protagonists, so it was really good to see them going for something rather different with Missing Link. This time the focus was on a Jules Verne-style adventure featuring a charming Bigfoot. Chris Butler brought a lot of creativity to this story as we follow the characters on a journey, and the various locales seen in the movie are quite impressive. Butler also comes up with a lot of fun set pieces, with one on a boat serving as a wondrous feat of animation. There was a bigger emphasis on humor than in previous Laika films, and plenty of the jokes landed. I especially liked the running joke of the Bigfoot taking things literally. This is a joke that could have gone old quickly, but Butler comes up with a decent amount of variations on the bit. The character designs also had a unique quality to them that I greatly admired. Throw in strong voice work from Hugh Jackman, Zach Galifianakis, and Zoe Saldana, and Missing Link made for another winner from Laika Studios, who I'm anxious to find out what they make next. Spies in Disguise. Taking the spy movie in an inventive new direction, this continues to show the incredible amount of creativity Blue Sky is known for. Directors Troy Quane and Nick Bruno have fun playing with the tropes of the genre, while also utilizing the sort of filmmaking you might see in a James Bond movie. The action sequences are spectacularly put together, with the right amount of fight choreography and cool style. And by teaming up Lance Sterling, a secret agent with a love for violence, and Walter Beckett, a pacifist inventor, the filmmakers create a neat dynamic of polar opposite philosophies. When Sterling turns into a pigeon, that leads to multiple hilarious gags as he attempts to grow accustomed to his new body. The various gadgets used by Beckett are also very clever and do play a role in moving the narrative forward. Underneath all the action, there's also a nice message about embracing unorthodox ideas in science. Spies in Disguise is yet another example of why I consider Blue Sky to be one of the most creative animation studios today. Frozen 2. I really liked the first film, featuring Anna, Elsa, and Olaf, and I thought Jennifer Lee and Chris Buck found a great way of continuing their story. I really liked how the film had Anna and Elsa facing Arendelle's past, and learning from history and potentially correcting it. The decision to jump forward a number of years was a smart one, as we see how the two of them have matured since the events of Frozen. The animators also deserve a mention, with Anna especially conveying a lot through her facial expressions, and the effects animators creating some truly striking images. I greatly enjoyed the songs by Robert Lopez and Kristen Anson Lopez, with Christoph's 80s ballad, Lost in the Woods, and Elsa's tune Show Yourself being my personal favorites. And I also thought Olaf was used to good effect, as the filmmakers knew precisely the right times to use him in a scene. The filmmakers also used the sequel as an opportunity to explore Norwegian culture more, as we also meet a Sami tribe and discover their relationship to Arendelle. The various fantastical creatures we encounter also lovely additions, and the use of autumn colors leads to a really beautiful film. Disney Animation has not made many sequels, but I've been impressed by the few they have done, and Frozen 2 is no exception. The Lego Movie 2, the second part. A delightful and hilarious follow-up to the brilliant first LEGO movie, this sequel smartly decides to make it a full-blown musical and explore new themes as it looks at the topic of playtime between boys and girls. Something I especially appreciated is how the movie criticizes the idea that you need to be cynical and to reject any and all positivity. That allows Emmett and Wildstyle to grow as characters, and the film shows both their strengths and their flaws. The songs are also excellent. Gotham City Guys is my favorite, while Not Evil and Super Cool similarly make for catchy tunes with clever lyrics. Director Mike Mitchell expands on the visual ideas presented in the first film and is particularly creative with mixing the live-action elements with the animation. This ended up being the final movie in Warner Bros. LEGO movie franchise, and what a way to cap off such an entertaining series. Klaus. With this movie, Sergio Pablos wanted to accomplish two things: evolve hand-drawn animation to give an idea of what it would have looked like had major American studios not abandoned the art form, and to present a unique twist on the Santa Claus origin story. He definitely succeeded in those goals. Looking at the movie is incredibly refreshing, and there's just a warm and inviting look to the entire presentation. Klaus also takes advantage of our knowledge of Santa by coming up with neat ideas of how his famous traits came to be. Seeing the relationship between Jesper the Postman and Klaus blossom is incredibly heartwarming, as is the friendship he forms with a young Sami girl. It really feels like we get to know this snowy town, including this longtime feud between different families and the various citizens who reside there. One character I especially got a kick out of was a boat captain who continually messes with Jesper. Pablos balances the tone really well as we jump between the funnier parts and sadder moments. Klaus is another modern Christmas favorite to add to the roster, one that will always be there on Netflix to watch at any time of year. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. I've greatly enjoyed and been emotionally invested in Hiccup and Toothless's journey ever since we were introduced to them in the first movie 9 years ago. Dean DuBois and the team at DreamWorks Animation have been able to steer these characters for an entire trilogy and found the appropriate way to finish their story. The Hidden World found new challenges for the Vikings and Dragons of Berk to face, including a threatening new villain who is in many ways the opposite of Hiccup. The flying scenes are unsurprisingly stirring, and John Powell's score captures the right emotional and exciting punch. It all leads to a climax that is well earned and satisfying. I think the How to Train Your Dragon movies have managed to have a timeless appeal, and they will be watched for generations to come. It's been quite the adventure ever since I saw the first film on opening day all those years ago. And my favorite anime movie of 2019 is Toy Story 4. I find it difficult thinking of a more perfect series of films than Toy Story. The directors, writers, story artists, and animators at Pixar have been able to evolve these movies from the beginning, successfully introducing new ideas and characters to this universe, and continue to hit our emotional sweet spots. Toy Story 4 was yet another terrific entry in the series, continuing Woody's story as he struggles with his place in Bonnie's room and how to be the best toy possible. The addition of Forky was particularly clever, opening up all new possibilities in the Toy Story universe, and I loved Tony Hale's vocal performance as the character. Bringing back Bo Peep felt natural, and I loved how they showed the way she adapted to her new environment. Meanwhile, Key and Peele provided the biggest laughs as a pair of carnival toys, and Keanu Reeves was a riot as a Canadian stunt toy named Duke Kaboom. The heart that Toy Story is famous for remains, and we really see Woody grapple with a lot of decisions over the course of the movie, leading to an ending that made sense to me. Josh Cooley also brought his own visual stamp to the series, and him and the production design team especially had a lot of fun packing the antique shop with all sorts of neat Easter eggs and other knickknacks. Toy Story 4 had a lot to live up to, and I think the movie retained the extraordinarily high quality of its predecessors. Thank you to all the talented filmmakers and artists who put these animated films together, as well as those who made other animated films in 2019 that were not on this list. And the next year looks to have just as many promising animated features. We'll be seeing a road trip interrupted by evil machines, an East Asian warrior searching for the last dragon in the world, a family of children fending for themselves, two elf brothers who look to spend one last day with their father, an exploration into the world of souls, a dragon who can grant wishes, the big screen debut of a popular burger place, and more adventures featuring cavemen, trolls, minions, a cheerful sponge, and a mystery-solving dog. I look forward to watching all those anime movies in 2020, and I'll see you next time.